Hey friends, today is a difficult day. I had a video lined up about future St. Stephen, economic development, some of the really exciting business agencies that work in our town towards our prosperity. I had a great conversation this week, as I've told you, with the interim president of Future St. Stephen, David Purcell. Yesterday I met with Jeff Renaud, the CAO. Today was an excellent info session by the BIA, downtown St. Stephen Business Improvement Area. So I have all this exciting information to bring about prosperity and how our communities are working together for improvement and development. But I do want to kind of issue a candidate statement about an incident that is kind of going viral, you could say, in our community. It was posted on one of Vicky Hogarth's articles, which is about a whole other topic that I will not be discussing today. A group of residents that are actually filing a lawsuit against the municipality and Neighborhood Works based on a decision or to overturn a decision of council. So this is difficult and it's relevant, and I'm open to talking about that. But of course, it is a court case, and I'm outside of that court case, and people are not issuing statements around active court cases, and so that is not what I'm here about today. I will say I'm also responding to this because I saw it posted under Vicky Hogarth's very public post there. I am actually not in Facebook groups that are very popular in the community of St. Stephen. I have found a lot of those Facebook groups, no matter what their intention, to be less than accurate at times to be quite defamatory, you could say, against individuals or agencies or things like that. I believe Facebook groups really do need strong moderation. And so for that reason, I do not participate in Facebook groups. Now, if something is on a public page, a news page like Vicky Hogarth, then I do see it and I feel like I need to respond to it, especially as a candidate for mayor. And there are residents saying, what do the candidates say about this? So very briefly, the incident being described by a resident with a posted video is that an individual grabbed a bicycle off of property near the lodge on Main Street in St. Stephen, took that bike and then rushed into the lodge yard area where I don't know why that was their destination. Again, this is all alleged. The video does show a resident, Tanya, going across the street and retrieving the bicycle. There's allegations of that it was stolen, and the description of, the bike belonging to a little boy and the emotional trauma around that. And I'm a parent of two children, 11 and 13, and I would feel the same way. I would be enraged in the same way. I like to think I would behave like Tanya did in the same way. And so this is important for residents to respond that way when we do see criminal activity and cruelty, frankly, against children and families in our community. So there is that. Now, what is a candidate's response to that? I want to kind of frame this up with three things that you should no longer be tolerant of as a resident. You should not be tolerant of dealing drugs in our community. Okay, so I, as mayor, want to come out as strongly as I can against drug dealing. And if this is the best we can do in our community, then it is severely lacking. I have said how I would like to speak to Peter Lambert in the days to come. I've just described to you all the meetings I've had. My candidacy will not end. Election day will not end, hopefully, before I can get some FaceTime with Peter Lambert, who, the RCMP is part of the Wellbeing Task Force. They just did a report to council, so there is a lot of interface there. And I know the RCMP have wanted to have more accountability and engagement, but for some reason, the way that we cannot rid our community of drugs is too ubiquitous. Drug dealers, how we cannot make sure that this does not continue to be a scourge in our town. Like I say, if this is the best we can do, it's severely lacking. If laws are preventing us from being able to clean this up and stop this activity, then the laws are insufficient. So I will say that it is definitely time to be intolerant of and no longer accept this kind of drug dealing criminal activity in our municipality. The second thing is it's very important to not be tolerant of the lodge being used as a place to harbor criminal activity or criminals. And I do have to say here that I am a board member of Neighborhood Works. We immediately began to discuss this. Obviously the lodge as a public a place where people can enter that is part of the risk. It is open to somebody like exactly what happened, doing some criminal activity and then rushing into the yard and even rushing into the building. But it is the next steps that occur that are key. Do the staff of the lodge then take appropriate steps to call the police, to mitigate criminal activity, to allow the RCMP to enter? And again, I don't want to speak on behalf of the board or the staff of Neighborhood Works, but I do want to tell you and assure you that those kinds of discussions are always being had. I am the chair of the committee called the Good Neighbors Committee of the Neighborhood Works Board. We do recognize that this is extremely important. And today, I think the response, Neighborhood Works cannot be held accountable for somebody stealing a bike and rushing into the yard any more than if that happened to you. If somebody stole something or was running from the police and ran into your yard and into your mudroom, are you responsible for that? Now, what you do next, that is how you can be judged. Do you harbor that person? Do you make excuses for that person? Do you mitigate what they did? This is an important next step for Neighborhood Works and the lodge specifically. And that is something that, because I'm not familiar with all the details of what happened, I'm sure there's a police report and there's filings going on. I cannot speak to the specifics, but that's the second thing that you should no longer be tolerant of, and make sure that Neighborhood Works and the lodge are always making sure to bring people to account who may be acting in a criminal way. So that's the second thing. The third thing that I would invite you to no longer be tolerant of is the lack of bridge housing in St. Stephen. I have put out multiple videos on this. I'm actually kind of in the middle of a series on economic development and how housing, 2 days ago, housing is the linchpin for our community moving up to the next step. Now, whether that is affordable housing, whether that is rehabilitating these larger homes that are boarded up, whether that's multi-level units, market housing that are just private housing on the market, whether that is bridge housing, which the homelessness services event that happened last Tuesday, both ministers were here, Minister of Social Development, Minister of Housing, and I put up my hand and asked in that meeting, what is the next step that St. Stephen needs to do in order for the province to bring the necessary services to this municipality? And the answer was a location. And I continue to talk about how this municipal government has not been able to find a location. It is time to no longer tolerate the lack of bridge housing in St. Stephen. Why is this crucial? Because the shelter continues to be a place where people are living on top of each other, trying to sleep, not able to sleep at night, being targeted by drug dealers and other activity. There's way too much going on downtown there on Main Street, right in the core, that is affecting all the homes nearby. And when the lodge is the only game in town when it comes to social supportive services for people who are experiencing homelessness, this is what we are going to see. Friends, other municipalities have tackled this problem in a more timely manner. They have provided the next step. I'm just going to refer to what the executive director of Neighborhood Works said in his time on the floor at the homeless services event last week. He got up and he asked very two-pointed questions, and I invite you to answer them right now to yourself as well. Who wants to get rid of and close the shelter in St. Stephen? Many, many hands went up. The majority, 90%, because I think people were like, where is this going? Who wants to close and remove the shelter? And then his second question was, who wants to eliminate the need for the shelter in St. Stephen? I put up my hand for both. I want to close and remove the shelter because I want the need for the shelter to be eliminated. The way that we take the pressure off of the shelter and ultimately remove and close it is with bridge housing, which was a process that was underway that this municipality did vote against 199 Union as being the site where it can go. And lots of object, well, the site wasn't suitable, this and that. I hope you enter into, like I say, 3 things you should not accept. We should not accept drug dealing and leniency around that. We should ask our police to step up. What more can we do, whether that's laws that need to be passed? I know there's federal, I know there's provincial. We just cannot tolerate it anymore. We have to make sure that the lodge is not a harbor for criminal activity. I don't believe it to be, but of course, that will be borne out with measures and ways that staff act and the way the police partner with the lodge, because most of the people there are not criminals. Just remember that. But in this instance, what the video shows and the allegations, we do see that kind of activity. And again, do not tolerate. Just let's no longer tolerate the fact that there is no next step. There's no place for people who are unhoused to be housed. Now, I've had many conversations at doors with people. I talked about how Randy the other day cut me off on my morning run and asked, what are you about? And we started talking. I said, housing is the linchpin. This is the kind of explosive activity that is dividing our community. And what will alleviate this is bridge housing, because, friends, we cannot make people who are experiencing homelessness disappear. Also, we have a Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Other municipalities, frankly, have attempted to be extremely harsh with people who are experiencing homelessness. Some of the sentiments out there, remove them, cast them out completely from the municipality. Whether or not you agree with that, it cannot be done legally. We live in a country where, I'm not a legal expert, but Section 7 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, every individual has the right to life, liberty, and security of the person. So that security of the person does protect someone who's experiencing homelessness to dignity around their ability to move around a community. Not act criminally, but they can't simply be picked up off the street and removed. That is a violation of their rights in Canada. And Section 15, equality rights. You cannot pass laws that target a group or a person based on their circumstance or things like that. Every individual is equal under the law. Now, municipalities try to, and in some cases successfully, pass specific laws. We can pass specific laws that mitigate nefarious activity in our communities, but those should be targeted to people who are dealing drugs and committing other criminal acts in our community. So, that is my response. My response to, where does every candidate stand? The shelter is a really bad solution to an even more horrible problem. Okay, it's difficult on the staff. It's difficult on the clients of the lodge. It's difficult on the people who conduct business and live around the lodge. But the way to make change and improve this and mitigate this is to get rid of the shelter by eliminating the need for the shelter. How do you do that? You can't make these folks go away, because we've already seen where we are living in a case where there's encampments everywhere. There's people scattered all over lawns and backyards and the woods and the parks and the trails. If you just simply close the shelter, you're going to go back to that. So what is the solution? It's moving people to bridge housing, which I have talked about at length here. I obviously don't have time to do this in a 15-minute video today, because I've made a whole 15-minute video on what it's like to be a participant in a program that has bridge housing, 8x8 modular units, or modular units or trailer units where somebody has a small space with a bed and a door they can lock, and they can sleep and start to recover their health, get off of drugs. They get wraparound services from the province. The province wants to help. Let's stop tolerating the fact that we do not have a location for this. This is being exacerbated by our lack of action, okay? So let's build up St. Stephen in so many ways, as I was speaking about economically and housing-wise, but let's also build it up with bridge housing and make sure we build down the shelter, because there's way too much pressure going on for people around and people in. It is a very untoward situation. Okay. Thank you, friends. Take care of yourself today. Take care of your neighbor. Thanks to those who stepped up yesterday. I really do think that that's part of being a good neighbor, and I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Let's build up St. Stephen together. Cheers.